Today we're going to talk about how to run grimdark campaign settings and survival-heavy D&D and RPG campaign settings. Roll the intro. Really hope you liked the new intro. It might stick around, it might not. But whenever we come to talking about grimdark within Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition more particularly, people usually bring up the module Curse of Strahd. I've already made videos on why this module didn't really work for me, so if you want my opinion on it, then just go watch those videos. However, my first piece of advice does actually come from this book, and it's change spells around. On page 24, there are a list of spell modifications. For example, alarm, instead of hearing a metal ping, the caster hears a scream. However, the biggest one I see people focusing on whenever they kind of run grimdark campaigns or some kind of variant is Revivify. Whenever a creature is restored to life using the Revivify spell, they scream upon regaining consciousness as if waking up from a horrible night terror. I've seen some game masters and some DMs say, well, since this world is going to be very grimdark, I'm going to ban all resurrection magic unless it's from some great, powerful priest that spend their entire lives trying to learn this one spell. Yes, but no. I'm going to, kind of counteract some of the points with banning resurrection magic or healing magic in general. That one's less common, however, I still see it happen. My one, saying to say, if I were you, I would make, healing items still common. So maybe, a reward for a early dungeon is a staff or a wand of healing that can cast Cure Wounds. Let's roll d6. 5 times, and then it breaks, or something like that. Or, maybe have it in between adventures. Maybe a sale happened at the local alchemy shop, or the alchemist was making 2-for-1 healing potions. That way your party could still stock up on that stuff. But let's debunk some of those arguments really quick. Well, there are no gods in my world, meaning no clerics or paladins, meaning no healing. And that also gets rid of other problems like Divine Soul Sorcerer and Holy Avengers and all that stuff. As far back as 2nd edition D&D with Dark Sun and even some other settings, clerics have not been related to gods. You can be a cleric that is an atheist. You can be a cleric that's agnostic. Just as you can be a cleric who, worships a pantheon or worships a single god. You don't have to be a cleric to worship a god. And even more in standard 5th edition, paladins are no longer god-linked as much as clerics were. At least with clerics, there is a little bit of a suggestion that you should be linked to a god. I mean, the gods are in the back of the book. Paladins instead now have stuff like oaths. Their oath doesn't come from a god. For example, 2 great examples whenever it comes to paladins being Oath of the Crown and Oath of Conquest. I'm currently playing a godless paladin who is an Oath of the Crown. Their name is Echo. Even though our party has a cleric, Echo didn't learn their magic from a god. They learned their magic from someone who worshipped a god. And even then, they are a Oath of the Crown paladin, meaning that they get more powers from following the laws than they do from following a god. Now, one thing I would recommend if you're trying to run a super grimdark campaign is make it so the paladins have to roll a skill check anytime they try to use Lay on Hands. Statistically, as paladins gain levels, they become better healers than clerics because of the amount of reliable healing that they can do, compared to a cleric that has to spend a spell slot and still roll high on their dice. So I might have it so a paladin, something like this happens. Alright, so our cleric's down, and our sorcerer isn't into the end of the round. Okay, lay on hands on the cleric. For XYZ reasons I will come up with for another time. The connection to your oath is kind of faulty right now in the state that you're currently in due to the circumstances. I'm going to need you to roll a DC 15 religion check to see if you're still able to use your paladin powers this one time. This won't affect your spell slots. Also, mainly because I'm trying to keep healing down to a limited in this campaign because it's kind of grimdark and I want you all to be in danger. Okay, yeah, 16, and I'm going to pump 5 points of Lay on Hands into our cleric. Now, of course, this is all stuff that should be like described and discussed in your session 0. Imagine if the game master just said that, and then all of a sudden the paladin responded like, "Oh, well, that's really dumb. I wish I would have known that before I picked the paladin class. I mean, you're restricting one of my main features. Like, well, you know what? This campaign's too strict for me. I'm leaving." Like, imagine if the paladin said something like that. "Us as a species, we just discovered how to bring someone back to life once their heart is stopped." Okay, my counter to that is you're playing in a game that has dragons and wizards and druids and characters that can make fire go out of their hands with a snap of their finger and a couple words. So why are you worrying about the realism of your fantasy game? If you want a game that is more realistic, then go find some different system. D&D is not the one for you. Well, scrolls of healing and magic items and wands of healing and all that stuff will still be in my campaign. They're just going to be rare and expensive. Haha, take that, players. I mean, yeah, go ahead. You're allowed to do that. It's your campaign, but I've already kind of explained earlier why that kind of beats the balance of the game. Alright, number 2, decreasing hit points. I've seen some DMs that have said, okay, everyone's hit points, everyone's hit dice are going to be put down by 1 level. So if you have a D10 as your hit dice, you would actually have a D8. If you have a D6 as your hit dice, you would actually have a D4. And yeah, the one thing I will say is that D&D 5th edition at least is a very like fantasy superhero almost like role-playing system. I've seen some 5th edition campaigns being ran by older individuals where everyone's classes has the 1st or 2nd edition hit dice equivalent in 5th edition. So for example, like thieves or rogues and clerics would have D6s, wizards and sorcerers would have D4. The one class I would discourage this with is with the barbarian, because the build around the barbarian class is that you're a walking, talking sack of hit points. You are meant to get hit over and over and over again and keep on getting up. Number 3, using alternate rules / increasing prices on items. I'm going to get the latter out of the way first. Increasing prices on items. Once again, you're allowed to do that. There are some items, though, that I wouldn't recommend increasing, being like arrows. Arrows are going to be something that you can find really easily. Or rope. I've stolen a rule from Professor DM over at Dungeon Craft. Not really that he needs my shout out, but I still like shouting out other people. And he says in his campaigns, whenever everyone gets back to a safe area, such as like a city, a town, or a castle, or wherever their like setup is, alright everyone, we are going to spend 10 gold pieces and all of the stuff that you need has been replenished. So any arrows you spent, any rope that you cut, any armor that needed to be repaired, you need to buy a new weapon, cool, all it's set. Within the Dungeon Master's guide, starting at page 66, there are a couple of pages going over alternative rules that you can use. Some rules that I would recommend implementing are the fear, horror, and slow and natural healing, and the gritty realism. These are all variant rules. Starting off with fear. The fear mechanic basically says that whenever you come in contact with a creature that scares you, the DM might call for a wisdom check that the DM can say, and then if you basically succeed that, then nothing happens, but if you fail, then you are frightened for 1 minute. The frightened mechanic does not allow you to move out of range of the creature, I believe. The horror mechanic is very similar. Basically, if you see something that is like occult or scares you or something that you were just never meant to see, for example, I'm going to use seeing a Eldritch Abomination like Cthulhu, then you have to roll a DC, whatever the DM sets, Charisma save, and if you don't make it, then you have to take Madness, which is a mechanic that I've never seen used before, but I'll show the table. Here's the table. As you can see, a bunch of differing effects. One more rule that I plan on using, or that I would have you using, is the gritty variant rule, or the gritty realism variant rule. Basically, a long rest takes a week, and a short rest takes a day of downtime. I'm someone who thinks that short rests are grandly underused in 5th edition anyways, because why would you take a short rest when you could take a long rest instead? I mean, you're getting all your hit points back, all your spell slots back if you're playing a caster. Short rests are pretty much only made for marshals, and if you have time to short rest, then you probably have time to long rest. I don't know, that's been one of my things to work on as a dungeon master, saying, like, stuff like this. Hey, can we take a long rest? I'm getting low on spell slots. Are you sure that you have the time for that said long rest? Remember, you ticked off those goblins back in that cave back there, and last time you checked, they were still following you. Given 7 days, they could definitely find you if you're doing ill activity or doing no activity. However, you might be able to spend 1 or 2 days repairing your armor and getting your stuff back and ready to adventure again before they find you. That's going to be the end of today's video. Let me know if there's any other D&D or TTRPG topics that you want me to cover in the future. I cover both D&D and Pathfinder here on this channel. Alright, thank you. Like, comment. I especially like comments, and I will respond to comments and subscribe. Alright, see you later.